And welcome to the Shaman's View. I'm Dr. Alberto Villoldo. I was just reading how black holes in space may be the source of all of the invisible matter, of the dark matter and the dark energy that permeates 95% of the universe. Extraordinary how little we actually know about the nature of the invisible world. Because that 95% of reality that we cannot measure or see, that we call the dark field, that we call dark energy and dark matter, is the quantum fabric of creation itself that ancient peoples have had a way of interacting within and communing with, even when they could not perceive it or describe it or quantify it. Today I want to speak to you about the power of the serpent, about the sacred feminine and the serpent. In the West, we associate the serpent with evil, with the one who brought us the fruit of the tree of knowledge and damned and doomed humanity to live in pain and suffering for millennia until the end of time, which is a very long time away. But the serpent, in effect, was so misrepresented, got such a bad rap in the Bible, because the serpent was not demonic, it was not Satan. The serpent was the guardian of the tree of wisdom and the tree of knowledge. And it was the serpent that offered us that divine fruit that if you go to the east, to India, you find in Hinduism represented by the Kundalini, that divine serpent that arises through your chakras. If you go back to the origins of Western healing, the Asclepions, where the healing symbol was the serpent. And even today, the caduceus of modern medicine has two serpents that are intertwined with each other and that acquire wings at the very top to become that caduceus of healing, that staff of healing that represents power. Moses, when he journeyed through the desert, when he led the Israelites to freedom, he carried a serpent staff. And this is the power of the serpent, which is to lead us to freedom from that which has become too constraining and too binding. In the same way that the serpent sheds her skin, we learn to shed our past and our history of suffering, of slavery, of misuse of power, of being victims, all of those terrible stories of humanity. We learn to shed them the way the serpent sheds her skin. Not one scale at a time, the way that we have become comfortable in working with the shedding of our trauma in the West, where we try to pick on that scale that is stuck the most, my mommy issues or daddy issues, or the history of slavery. The history of slavery in America. Slaves built America. The foundations of capitalism are based on a two-class system, a class of masters and a class of slaves. So how do we break free from all of these terrible stories, all of these terrible stories that have informed humanity and have informed us, so we don't have to keep ourselves in bondage, in slavery to our jobs, to our marriages, to our children, to our lives, to our belief systems that tell us the kind of life that has been pre-selected for us and the kind of death that has been selected for us, that we call in the West statistics. How do we break free from these binding belief structures, from this paradigm that has become so confining and that is destroying humanity, is certainly destroying our health, and it's threatening to destroy the planet as well? We have to do it through the power of the serpent, through that Kundalini power, that awakening to our true nature, that awakening of human consciousness. And when that happens, there's a tremendous healing that takes place where we actually shed the past the way the serpent sheds her skin, all at once. We shed that tired, exhausted story of humanity struggling with the earth to take our fruit from the earth that will bear thorns and thistles for us, like we hear in the very first chapter of our story of creation, that our mother will not look after us, that we will have to struggle to get our food from the earth. And it's amazing how this is the world that we live in, where we have no time and we're struggling to make ends meet. I remember as a young medical anthropologist spending time in the Amazon. Amazon peoples have time. They spend an average of 3 to 4 hours collecting enough food and repairing their homes and doing the maintenance, the work that needs to be done to subsist, to have enough food, enough comfort, enough, repair the roof above your head. The average farmer in the civilized world spends between 10 and 14 hours a day gathering the same basic essentials that our nomadic hunter-gatherer ancestors did in only 3 or 4 hours. They have time. And this is what the power of the serpent can help us do. Because today we have to reimagine the human journey. We have to reimagine it. We cannot continue to banish that divine feminine represented by the serpent. We cannot continue to live lives that are not sustainable. We cannot continue to live in a world of masters and slaves. We want to live in a world of freedom. If you look at the ancient images of the goddess, you find that she always had serpents wrapped around her arms. If you look at the Americas, the great god of the Americas was Quetzalcoatl, the feathered serpent, the serpent that had acquired wings and had transcended its nature to become divine. And the beauty of the mythologies of the shamans is that they don't describe the realm of the gods, but they describe how you can become divine, how you can follow this path of the feathered serpent, of Quetzalcoatl, to come and awaken your serpent consciousness. Interesting, if you go to the Greeks, leaving the Americas for a moment, you go to the Greeks at the time of the oracle that guided kings and queens and governments for hundreds of years. The oracle was a woman, was the goddess, was the divine, and she was known as the Pythoness. She was protected by Apollo, but the goddess was the Python, was a woman who embodied that energy of the Python, of being able to see through the veils of time, to foretell destiny. But not only foretell what was to come, but help select destiny, help to choose so that we would not be caught living in the grip of fate. And if we think about this for a moment, this is the gift of the serpent wisdom, that we can break out of the grip of the fate that has been selected for us by our genetics, by our culture, by our skin color, by our gender, by statistics. If you read the statistics, and of course you say, I'm not going to be a statistic, but this is a curse that all of us living in the Western world have inherited. We will become a statistic unless we choose to be an outlier in the bell curve, not in the fat part of the bell curve, but in one of the ends, the front end, hopefully, where you can be that one person out of 1,000 that has a long and healthy life, whose health span equals her lifespan. So this is the gift of the serpent. It brings us to our passion. It brings us to our sexuality. It brings us to our innate feminine wisdom. It's brought to us by the power of the serpent. And when we awaken that wisdom, then our past simply dissolves. We're no longer caught in the grip of our personal or collective history. It is shed the way the serpent sheds her skin. But when I studied psychology, I learned that you had to work on your stuff, that you had to work on your trauma, that you had to work on your shortcomings, that you had to find what it is that is blocking you and keeping you from being who you came here to be or who you want to become. What a mistake. This is the masculine, let's, lean into it and face it, in your plate, in your face. You've got to deal with that stuff you're keeping from yourself. You do, actually, but you have to do it from the point of view of the feminine, of the goddess, of the serpent medicine, which is that when you awaken to that higher oceanic consciousness, experiencing your oneness and communion with all, those details handle themselves much more easily and readily. So when you do confront your trauma, you go, here are the lessons that the universe was offering me. And I had to learn it in a really painful way. Thank you, and I'll never learn that way again. The serpent power, the kundalini power, can lead us there. That same serpent staff that led Moses and the Israelites out of slavery, you can use to guide yourself out of your personal Egypt. So we're not carrying stones in our shoulders to build another pyramid for another pharaoh again. That pharaoh that we've internalized, that tells us that we have to be productive and we have to produce and we've got to, you can't do what you love, not unless it's in your spare time. No, that can lead you to an open-hearted engagement that is passionate and creative, and that will inevitably lead you to enlightenment and to abundance and to living in stewardship with the earth and with the land. So I want to invite us to do a small ceremony to honor the power of the serpent. And when we open sacred space, of course, we call on the four powers, on the serpent, on the jaguar, on the hummingbird, and on the eagle. And at the beginning, I used to think that these were symbols. We're calling on the south direction. We're connecting with the spirit represented by the serpent, a symbol of something bigger than me. Well, it's not only a symbol, it's a power. You're summoning a power of creation. So these are the four forces that create the cosmos, that the shamans call serpent, jaguar, hummingbird, and eagle. The physicists call them the four fundamental powers or laws of nature, which are electromagnetism, the strong and the weak nuclear force, and gravity. This is it. Einstein was looking for that unified field theory that could unify these four forces. It's never happened, because these are the four distinct forces. The shamans call them serpent, jaguar, hummingbird, eagle. And we find these same four forces in biology. These are the four fundamental forces of all of life. And biologists, of course, call them the four base pairs of DNA, A, C, G, T. These are the four basic molecules that life, this is the alphabet of life. All of the poetry of life is written with an alphabet that only has these four letters on it, the letter alphabet of DNA. Everything, the grasses, the trees, the whales, the eagles, the mosses, the green life, all of it has DNA. This is the life molecule. Again, these four forces that the shamans of old identified. But in our science, of course, we've identified these forces and describe them, but they're only information to us. Whereas the medicine women and men of old were able to summon the power of serpent, to awaken the passion, to help them heal and shed from terrible trauma or loss, to have their soft underbelly next to the belly of the mother, and to know that our mother is always there for us, Pachamama, Mother Earth. So I want to invite you to think of these and to relate to these as forces, as gigantic powers that you can summon and release, and that in doing so you awaken that force within you, because it is that force that lives within you as well as without you, and that provides your life force and your sustenance. That serpent energy does that. And I do this today because it is such an important time for us to shed all of the old models, all of the old paradigms that are collapsing and breaking down around us anyway. We don't want to age the way that our parents did or our grandparents. We don't want to grow old. We don't want to get sick the way they got sick. We don't want to love only the way that they loved. All of our Western paradigms, from medicine to economics to countries to corporations to intelligent life and machines that think, they're all being transformed. We need to shed them internally, not only externally. Not only update your iPhone with the latest operating system. I want you to update your energy field and your soul with the latest operating system for being human. And the key, the entry point, is the serpent power. It's the serpent energy. Because the ultimate power of the serpent is the power of love. Love is the fundamental force represented by the serpent. In some instances, it's passion, love directed towards another being that you become enamored and entangled with, or it's directed sometimes to a project, to a creative project that you're doing, where you become enamored of this project. It really has your heart and your guts. And this kind of passion is what can lead us to become that new human that's being born on the planet today, with a new set of paradigms and a new set of relationships to our health and to our love and to the world. But the foundation is that power of passionate love represented by the serpent. So I invite you to do this exercise with me that we're going to do together. I want you to, later on today, to find a stick, a small stick, that you can blow into this stick the parts of your body that you don't feel connected to. That band around your midriff that you're sure it's not really part of you, that belongs to someone else, but ended up around your belly, to put that in the fire. That part of you, that knee that hurts and gives you a difficult time, I want you to blow that in. Those parts of your body that you disown, that you don't want to look at too closely, or you haven't touched in a while or loved, I want you to blow that into that stick. That part of your body that doesn't work the way you would like it to work. Or if you have a health condition, to blow that health condition, that crisis, that diagnosis into that stick. And that's going to allow you to discover and understand that you're not a diagnosis, that you are a living miracle. We are living, walking miracles. And in doing so, we're going to be, in blowing these shortcomings into the stick and putting them in the fire, we're going to be awakening that serpent power, which is the fundamental power of healing, and it's the power of love. That's the only power that truly heals. But to do that, we have to awaken that serpent power that we have actually been divorced from, that has been taken away from us when we learned that the feminine was not godlike, that the serpent was satanical, when we learned that our bodies were sources of shame and embarrassment. All of that has to go into the fire. And place it in the fire. And I'd like you to track where this shame and where this pain is living in your body, and let it be consumed. And then pass your hands through that fire to bring that love, because that is the light. In every culture, that power of creation, of love, has been represented by the light. Into your belly, into your womb. And into your forehead. To awaken the center of wisdom, the center of love, and the center of creation in our belly. In the Andes, they call this the place of the yachai, of the deep wisdom. And wisdom is one expression of love. The place of the munai, of the love that we're familiar with of a mother towards a child, or towards your beloved, or towards God, when God becomes your beloved. And that power of the yankai, to create, because the power of creation is that power of love. In the Andes, they called it the munai ki. Munai is love, and ki is a power. It's the same word that you find in China with qi, with tai chi. So ki is this kind of universal word that represents love in action. But the awakener is a serpent. We must bite from that tree. We must take that fruit of knowledge, of wisdom, and let the wisdom awaken within us. And know that this is being offered to us by Spirit, so that we can follow that path of becoming not only godlike, but divine. Thank you for joining me today in the Shaman's View, and I invite you to do this fire ceremony now that we have a full moon. Full moon is coming on Saturday. Saturday, full moon. Whew. Awaken that love of the serpent and offer it for the healing of humanity. Thank you.